And you might want to hit mute all. And it might be good to, after maybe the first few minutes, to go back to that screen and see if other people have joined late.
Yeah.
Because they won't be able to see anything unless you admit them. Like those three that are currently joining right now.
Right.
They can't see the screen or anything at the moment.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting on the Wells Route 1 Corridor Transportation Feasibility Study. We're gonna go over a few different things tonight. My name is Tony Grande. I'm the project manager for this project from VHB. We'll go through a list here that'll tell you who else is involved in the meeting. We'll go over some meeting logistics, introduce you to the members that are on the technical advisory committee. We'll do a project overview. And we will go over the scope of work. We'll go over some existing conditions. We'll explain what we did for the road safety audit. We'll provide a summary of that. But the majority of tonight will be for allowing for public input, question and answer, and then we'll review next steps. So as I mentioned, this meeting is basically, as you know, some of you keep joining the meeting a little bit late, and I'll keep trying to let you in. All attendees are going to be muted. There'll be lots of time for question and answer, as we talked about. You should be able to raise and lower your hand later on and to be able to ask a question live, or you can possibly type it into the box as well. If you're phoning in, typically you can press *9 to raise your hand, and we'll try and get your input that way. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the town's website along with this presentation. However, if you do feel more comfortable providing comments via email, you can email questions to Jason Reddy at jreddy@vhb.com. So technical advisory committee members. From the town, we have several members. Mike Pardue, town manager, Carol Murray, public works director, Mike Livingston, Chris Baez from police, and then from Maine DOT, Marty Rooney, from Southern Maine Planning Development Commissioner Committee, Dean Williams, and myself and Jason Reddy, who is sitting next to me to my left. With that, I'm gonna just turn it over to Mike Pardue to say a few words about how this project came to be.
Thank you, Tony. I just want to take a moment to thank Maine DOT, Marty in particular. This is truly a generational opportunity. A project of this nature, a study of this nature does not come along without much forethought and planning, and really it's what we call a generational opportunity that comes along probably once in our respective lifetimes. So this is a tremendous opportunity for the town of Wells. And so I would like to thank VHB for carrying us forward in this, but DOT, we thank you very much for being here, and we look very forward to an extensive study that will probably take about a year, and coming back with a multiple number of community input meetings. Your input will be invaluable to us as a community, so we look forward to receiving that. Tony, I'll take it right back over to you.
Thank you very much, Mike. The study area itself is really focused along Route 1, beginning at the Wells Algonquin Town line and proceeding north to the intersection of Route 9 and Bypass Road, which is approximately 5.5 miles. The purpose of the study is to identify transportation and land use recommendations to improve safety, efficiency, and mobility for all transportation modes, primarily within the existing right-of-way while complementing economic development. We will evaluate safety and mobility, but also emphasize improvements to active transportation and transit. And I want to be clear that this study is focused on Route 1. We're not looking at a bypass or anything along those lines. And we're not necessarily looking at increasing capacity either. We are looking, basically, that purpose right there that you see is our main focus for this project. So just a brief review of our scope of work. We held a project kickoff meeting in October. Since that time, we've been reviewing available data and assessing current conditions. We'll be explaining some of that as we move forward here in the presentation. And then after we get some input tonight, we'll move forward with looking at future scenarios, coming up with some preliminary recommendations, coming back to you for more input, and then developing a draft and final report from there. So available data, we understand that there have been several studies done previously, but not similar studies to this. We will look at that data as well to kind of inform our work moving forward. We have received updated traffic data from Maine DOT from August of 2022, so fairly recent. And fortunately, the town was back in pretty much full swing this past summer. So we have some good information there from a traffic standpoint. We'll be reviewing existing wayfinding signs, where there are pocket parks or other similar projects that have been going on. We'll be looking at both existing and future active transportation uses, concerns. We're interested in anything that the community can provide to us from that standpoint as well. We'll be looking at existing transit routes and what type of future opportunities there might be. Smart city applicability. There could be an opportunity for signage that would inform people about parking availability, let's say, at the beaches or at the transportation center, and how those might be better utilized. But again, the focus of tonight's meeting is really to get input from the public on local issues and concerns. So this is a study area map, which kind of shows the two orange arrows there that you see show the limits of the triangles show the limits of the project study area. And the intersections that are listed underneath are kind of identified and numbered there, 1 through 6. Sanford Road, Route 109 is one of and these intersections were the intersections that the town had said in their study that they would like us to make sure that we address as part of this study. So Sanford Road, Route 109, Mile Road, Hannaford Plaza, Littlefield Road or Route 9B, Eldridge Road, and Bourne Ave. The process and overview. The study, as we mentioned, includes some data collection efforts, looking at existing information, what's been done in the past, basically an evaluation of existing conditions. We also have a review of crash data. Part of what we did in our road safety audit was go over that crash data in detail. And we'll be talking a little bit more in more detail about that road safety audit that we performed and a little bit later in the presentation. But again, I think what we're looking to get out of this study is to develop safety and mobility improvements, both short-term and long-term, and some of those could be demonstration or pilot projects as well. So those are what we're trying to get out of this study. So existing conditions, we know that Route 1 is a very busy during the beach season, and then activity kind of drops off in the off season. The corridor itself is generally 3 lanes with a continuous 2-way left turn lane down the middle. There is a short segment of 4 lanes in the Hannaford intersection area, but generally 3 lanes throughout the corridor. We understand that the town is undergoing a comprehensive plan update. The draft has been completed and the final is anticipated to be completed in June of 2023. We understand there's utilities throughout the corridor, overhead. There is street lighting, but limited throughout. Underground utilities as well existing. So these are just, we point these out because we understand that they're out there and there are things that will need to be considered for any type of construction that would be moving forward with in the future. Ongoing transit service, we know that the Orange Line runs year-round, which is good, provides some good transportation, transit service options. And then there's additional service that comes in the summertime through the Shoreline Explorer. There's a lot of driveways out here, very dense throughout the corridor. That's one of the things that we'll obviously be taking into account as well. There was a sidewalk plan that was developed by the town back in 2003, perhaps a little outdated at this point, but that's something that we'll be looking at as well. Trying to decide, is there some way to be consistent with the materials that they're gonna move forward with within the corridor. ADA compliance is limited throughout. There are some areas where it's good, some areas where there could be improvement. Intermittent pedestrian crossings along the corridor, that's something that we typically do for all of these studies, is to take a look at the existing crossing locations, looking at the distance, looking at the areas they're serving, looking at the ADA compliance and trying to figure out, is there a better location for them, or do they work well together along the corridor? Bicyclists and pedestrians, there are a lot of them out here, especially in peak season. We know that some of the businesses, a lot of the employees use bikes to get around. And both people use shoulders and sidewalks to get around. And we know that there are high crash locations, as I had mentioned, along here, 5 particularly high crash locations. And Jason is gonna talk a little bit more about that now.
Great, thanks, Tony. Again, my name is Jason Reddy. I'm a traffic engineer with VHB. To start off, before we get to the crash data, we mentioned the volume data. And the graphics that you can see right now, it goes from green to red, showing less traffic to more traffic. And unsurprisingly, the Turnpike has a lot of traffic, but Route 1 also has quite a bit of traffic as well in some of the connecting roads. But you can see that the summer peak has generally, it changes as you go up and down Wells, but about 20,000 vehicles per day as an average. It'll be a little bit more in the summertime, but you can see the off-peak time, it can go down to 7,000 vehicles in, say, January, when things are a bit colder. So historically, the traffic hasn't really changed too much. So you can see the chart here, since 2010, traffic has gone up by about 2%, but over years that's about 0.2% per year, which is not very much. And that's north of Route 109. And then south of State Route 109, it's actually gone down by 10%, or about 1% per year. So traffic isn't even as heavy as it used to be. In some ways, that could be, say, it's kind of filling in through the area with some of the other roads as people avoid some of the areas in the peak times. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the high crash location data. So the first thing we want to do is just kind of define what do we mean by a high crash location. A high crash location is a designation from Maine DOT, and it's based off from 2 criteria. The first is it statistically, when you compare that location to other locations in the state, does it have more or less? And so that's that critical rate factor there. Is it greater than 1 or less than 1? Does it have more or less than average? The second criteria is, does it have at least 8 crashes? So based on those criteria, you can see that there's 5 different locations that have that high crash location designation. We can also say that there's other areas that don't meet that criteria, but they're starting to get close. They still have a number of crashes, or the statistically it has more than other similar intersections. And so these were ones that we have identified early in the study to also make sure that we have consideration for additional input and recommendations. With this graphic, you can see the locations of both the high crash locations and if we zoom in, you can probably see those other areas of interest. So when we take a look at the crash location for the corridor as a whole, we can see that there most of the crashes are fortunately do not have are not injury producing. You can see in this case, you know, more than 3/4 of the crashes are not are just property damage only. When we go into, again, kind of summarizing the data, you can see that most of the crashes, you know, are intersection movement, their rear end, and a lot of that can be attributed to the congestion that we have. For the intersection movement, you know, it's people trying to squeeze through gaps that they don't have time for. And the rear end can sometimes be attributed to that stop and go traffic, where maybe you thought the person in front of you was going to go and they didn't take the gap. Summarizing some of the other data, we can see again that's that failure to yield or following too closely that I mentioned before is the predominant crash pattern. We can also see that, you know, the most crashes by time of day is in the midday, which that's when most people are driving. So not unsurprising. For the other crash data, you can see that most of the crashes are occurring on clear days and dry conditions with, you know, some windy, rain, and wet conditions. The other part of that we wanted to make sure that we identified as part of the study is the bike and pedestrian specific crashes. This map here identifies all of the locations in the last 10 years that have had a bike ped crash. This is a little bit different than the high crash location that we saw before, which was only limited to the previous 3 years. We wanted to make sure that with the number of bike ped crashes are not necessarily have as high a rate, so we wanted to go back in time more just to be able to have a significant number and to be able to pull data from. You can see here that there was a total of 47 bicycle crashes and 14 pedestrian crashes. Now this is a bit more than what we would expect, both based off from, you know, a town of this size and the area, the population. It's a little bit more prevalent. So as part of the study, we do want to make sure that we are providing recommendations and gathering input on experiences that you've had to help guide some of the recommendations that we're going to be having. Tony is going to discuss more about the roadside safety audit that we had.
Thanks, Jason. RSA, definition of the RSA is road safety audit, or sometimes also referred to as a road safety assessment. What it is a formal safety performance evaluation of an existing road or a future road by an independent multidisciplinary team. So as far as who we had in attendance for this one, we had several staff members from the town involved, from Public Works, Police, and Fire. We had several people from Maine DOT, from Planning, Traffic, Safety, the Region Office. We had their ADA compliance person as well, and VHB also had similar expertise in attendance at this meeting as well. And basically you can see there that we were, these are two photos as we were out in the field. So why do we need RSAs? Basically, traffic safety is made up of three factors having to do with the vehicle, the driver, and the roadway. So that Venn diagram kind of tries to show what the relationship is between those three. And it's not, all of them are not individually attributed. So there could be several factors involved. That's where you see the overlap of those things. And just to give you an example of what those are, so a vehicle issue could be faulty brakes. The vehicle had an issue with faulty brakes. So that's a vehicle factor. The human factor, somebody ran a red light, that they could have done something different, but they chose not to. And then the roadway environment itself, perhaps there's a sight distance issue or something along those lines. So those are the three different types of factors that we're talking about when we're talking about doing a road safety audit. And what we focus on with the road safety audit is the road environment factors, because those are the ones that we can try and control, and we can try and maybe improve the design of the facility to try and minimize the severity of crashes and maybe the number of crashes as well. So that's kind of a brief overview of that standpoint. So the RSA process itself, we conducted it over 2 days. The afternoon of November 8th and the morning of November 9th. We started it with an overview of the area and crash data. We then we had decided at that point when we initially met where we were going to stop. We got the input from the crash data. We had the input from the town as well. It was great to get input from local police and fire on where they have been responding to things along the corridor. So those are really important input factors to be able to consider. We then documented those issues while we were out there, identified what concerns there were from the field reviews, came back in and did a review of what those what those types of features were that we found out there. And we also drove the corridor at night as well, so that we could get a good sense of what it looks like. And that's what you try to do as part of the RSA, is look at the varying conditions that you might find out there as well. One of the things, and then we step through this process where the first thing that we do is identify positive features, because there are some positive features out here as well. Identifying any overarching concerns, and those could be, could do with land use. As we mentioned, there's a lot of driveways out here. Visibility, how can people see pretty well out here? And then ability range, there could be different people with different abilities that are trying to use the corridor as well. And then after everything is done, we will develop a summary RSA report that we'll provide to the town. It'll be posted on the website once it's completed, and it will also become part of the final report as well. So I'm just gonna step through some of the features that we had identified as part of the RSA. And these are the positive safety features. There are a number of rapid flashing beacons located at multiple crosswalks along the corridor, which helps identify where the crossings are. Person has to press the button. I think that's a problem sometimes where people don't press the button. Excuse me. There are sidewalk esplanades that separate vehicles from traffic, which is also a very good feature. There are bicycle lanes throughout the corridor, which also helps because there are a number of bike riders out here. The lane lines, for the most part, are fairly visible, which is also helpful and effective for roadway lighting, meaning that for the most part, they do a good job of reflectivity. The flashing beacons that are out here look like they're operating pretty well, especially when we were going through at night. They were fairly bright as well. The condition of the roadway signs are in fairly good condition, generally speaking. Had a recent sidewalk project on Harbor Road, so again, some good things that are going on. And there's a new wayfinding plan that is underway, and signs will be installed soon. Other features, the town has a centralized online monitoring system for the streetlights, which is very helpful. It was good to hear that. The fixed route transit service, as we talked about, is services visitors and seasonal workers alike. could possibly be some improvements, and that's one of the other features that we'll be looking at as well, and how to maybe tie that into the transportation center. The town hosts a number of local events, including, the marathon and half marathon. And then we'll get to some of the overarching safety concerns. And again, these are just issues that were brought up during our RSA process from this small group of people. Lack of connections between sidewalk sections in some areas where the sidewalks are narrow or the bike lanes are narrow. Vehicle travel lane widths are inconsistent. Some areas they're very wide, some areas they narrow down. We'll be looking to hopefully provide some consistency throughout the corridor. Emergency response times in the summer are hindered by traffic. Oftentimes, emergency vehicles are trying to go down the center of the road because there's no other opportunity for them to get through the traffic. Pedestrian crossings in some cases are very long because the roadway is fairly wide. In some areas, for the most part, it's 3 lanes wide, but in some areas it's some shorter areas where it's four lanes wide, or even the shoulders are very wide in some locations. Weaving or lane shifts throughout, where the lane all of a sudden pushes you to the middle or pushes you to the right. Some of those come up very quickly. Some overhead signs are missing. Maybe there's a location where we could add more. In some cases, maybe there's too many roadway signs or inconsistent pavement markings. Again, this is the type of things that we'll be looking at as well. The use and effectiveness of the traffic signals, can they be improved? Can they be made more efficient with newer, updated technology? The high density of driveways is a concern. Can there be anything that we could consider for access management throughout the corridor? And obviously the large volume difference between summer and winter. We have to make sure that we keep that in mind, that if we do something for peak summer traffic, how does that affect things in the off season as well? Especially where, you can consider it as dealing with a mall, let's say the main mall, where most times of the year, it's not a problem, except for Christmas time or something like that, where it is very, very challenging to get around. So you don't necessarily design for Christmas time for those types of events. But this is a very long stretch, so we do have to think about this a little bit differently so that we are able to try and do the best we can to improve the situation for everybody. Mobility needs. There could be better accessibility, especially for beachgoers. We showed pictures of people walking on the shoulder. We need to figure out how can we better accommodate that. There's not necessarily any sense of a defined place when you get here. Maybe there's an opportunity at both ends of this corridor to kind of announce that you've arrived in the town of Wells. And you're in a special place now, so slow down, pay attention. Unsafe speeds, that's another problem. Even when we were driving the corridor, especially at night, we were driving the speed limit and people were going by us in the center turn lane to pass us. And then we would meet them at the next traffic light up above. They would be in front of us instead of behind us. So things like that. Driver behavior at permissive left turn lanes. As Jason was mentioning, impatience possibly causes a lot of those crashes. Turn limitations based on driver adherence. Hard to find transit stops, and I think overall maybe an improvement of what's out here today, and I think that could be a big part of this study is how we can provide better access to transit. Beach parking issues are huge for the community. Because people are circulating, constantly looking for parking. In some cases, they're giving up and saying, I'm just gonna park here, so they're parking illegally. So those are other issues that we can try and consider as well. Need for sidewalk on both sides of the road in specific places. Those are some things that we'd like to get, feedback as well and see where there's opportunities to do that. Is a center turn lane the best use of that where it exists today, or are there other ways to address that? Do additional left turn prohibitions make sense as part of access management? And what we mean by that is at specific driveways, does it make sense to limit to a right turn in and a right turn out only, so that we don't allow left turns out of certain locations, that people would be able to go up, make a U-turn someplace and come back around. That would limit some of those conflict points along the corridor. Overarching improvements that people would like to see, again, this was just from our small committee. Casino Square accessibility improvements, which is not on the study area, but near adjacent to the study area. Access management, I think that will be a huge thing to look at as part of this. Traffic calming, gateway treatments, seasonal employees mostly walk and bike, so they need to somehow be accommodated here. We could be adding, speed limit feedback signs, which kind of let people know you're going 45 miles per hour right now. Variable message signs could be used to provide information to people that, parking is full at the beaches, no sense in going down there. Seek other opportunities, and maybe we find, where are those other opportunities? Are there opportunities at the transportation center or other locations around the community where we can identify those areas? Pedestrian crossing enhancements, maybe we add a refuge island in certain locations to allow people to shorten that crossing distance. And again, as I mentioned, transit service, just trying to make sure that we work together to see what opportunities there are for that. So with that, we've been talking for quite a while, about 30 minutes. So we're hoping that we're gonna open it up to questions and answers, comments, to hopefully allow you to help us understand what you think about the quarter and what you'd like to see. So one of the things that I have put up here is basically, again, the study's purpose, which is to identify transportation and land use recommendations to improve safety, efficiency, and mobility for all transportation modes. And again, we're talking primarily within the existing right-of-way. We're not looking to go offline too much. Obviously, some improvements may have some impacts in specific locations once we get into it. And also while complementing economic development, we're not looking to stymie economic development, we're looking to complement it. Now, how can things be better and work better? And a large focus will be on active transportation and transit, the connections to transit. So I've just got some points up there for you to consider, but we'd love to hear people's thoughts on this. And with that, I will open it up for comment, and I've just put this up here so that people can have a view of the study area. So with that, I will check this out here. And just a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand and we will unmute you and allow you to ask your question. Or if there is anyone here that would like to step up to the podium.
My name is Mary Lee Maldonis, and I have a question for the DOT. Do you ever reconsider intersections or situations such as the Cumberland Farms and 109? I live on Stephen Eaton Lane, so that's a challenge because as soon as you come out, it turns into a right-hand turn lane only. And as you make the turn, you can have a car sitting there waiting to go in, or one coming out, which you do not see because you might have a truck or a van, and he's gonna cut across in front of you to go west on 109. So I would appreciate if somebody could really look into that during this study. And also, is there any way to get a crossing light on the north side of 109 at the Cumberland Farms? The only way to cross there is once you get to the Cumberland Farms, over to the police and fire with using a light button. But if you're coming, the people on Stephen Eaton or anyone staying at the motels north, as they're coming south and they wanna cross, walk to the library, walk to the
Crossing
school.
Route 109, you're saying, right?
Route 1 and 109.
Right, yes.
There's no way to safely, with the cars constantly turning,
Right.
people coming this way onto 109, and the people coming out, to safely get across, to go to the library, Dunkin' Donuts, or even get to the light, to get over to the IGA, to get you to the other light.
Sure.
So that would be really appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is there anyone online that would like to ask? Here we go. You can go ahead and unmute. Diane?
Hi, this is Diane Williams. I'm wondering if you've looked at the effect that the trolleys have on traffic. It doesn't appear that they help traffic, seems like they should. But is there any information, if they do help traffic quite a bit, then we should push to get them back?
I just wanted to clarify, when you say the effect that trolleys have on traffic, are you meaning if
Oh.
we had more trolleys that would have we would have less traffic, or are they
Yes,
causing?
yes,
Okay,
exactly.
that's what I
Or
thought you were
trolleys
saying.
We didn't have trolleys this past summer, or the
Right,
summer before. But I mean, if they are effective in relieving traffic, let's bring them back and get more funding for it.
and I appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify. I thought that's what you meant. Just wanted to make
Yes.
sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else that's out there on Zoom that has a question? Again, feel free to raise your hand. Okay, well, I will move forward. So the next step for the study itself is kind of collect any feedback, and again, there's plenty of opportunity to comment still. We'll put Jason's information up again on the last slide, and we'll allow time to make sure that everybody gets it. People will be able to view this online. You can let other people know about it and make sure that the town will continue to promote it, and the fact that it will be available online, and we are interested in comments as well. So we'll be collecting all of that and putting all that together and provide that summary of comments to our technical advisory committee. We'll be looking to set up some stakeholder meetings with certain people around the community. And evaluate all the information that we're able to collect up front and start to develop some conceptual improvement alternatives, including, again, when we say stakeholders, that would also include transit use throughout the corridor, connectivity to the Wells train station, and obviously access to and from the beach areas as well. And then as far as project schedule goes, we'll be looking to come back later this summer. Maybe even provide some other opportunities for input between now and then that won't necessarily be through a public meeting, but maybe some just other opportunities. Maybe Jason and I will go down to the beach and collect some information. And then later in the year, at the end of the year, we'll have another meeting to kind of go over additional information. And then we'll hope to, look to prepare and submit a final report early next year. Early in 2024. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Just want to make sure that we don't have any other questions or comments. Looks like we do not. So with that, I want to thank everybody that joined us. Make sure that we have one last opportunity.
One of the things I think you touched upon that I think would be helpful to know is how do you make it so that Wells isn't just a drive-through place, to make it more of we don't have a downtown area. How do we make a downtown area? And I think you touched upon it with like the gateways or.
Correct.
So that would be something that I would be interested in seeing how you can make a destination or a downtown area for us.
Thank you. See, I knew if I was persistent. There's still another opportunity. All right, and again, if for those of you that are out there or watching this at a later time live, on a Zoom repeat, please feel free to send comments to Jason. We would love to get some feedback so that we can make sure that we can include those comments moving forward. We'd like to get the comments up front before we start looking at opportunities to make sure that we are going down the right path. It's a lot better to get them up front rather than after we've developed some. Although I do understand that it's easier to comment on something that is in front of you and then you can pick it apart. But it's also nice to have the opportunity to create that initial plan as well. So this is what we're doing. We're giving you that opportunity to let us know what your concerns are and help guide this study forward. So again, thank you all very much. And Mike, anything else?
Just how much we value the partnership, Marty, Jason. We really thank you. Tony, great job. And we will certainly have this available to the public for viewing at a future time. We'll post this very soon. And please, we encourage public feedback to Jason, and that'll help us kind of benchmark where we want to go.
Yes.
So again, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.